This is Judge Joe Brown, and you're watching We All Be News TV, the
News-free Dixie.
News-free Dixie for the 21st century.
Wow.
So, see, if you grew up in Los Angeles, I suppose it was like being of an unapproved religion in Nazi Germany. It was like, where are your papers? We don't see your papers, yeah? Fritz, he does not have these papers. Let's machen Sie here, your papers. Man, what papers? I mean, what are you talking about? You do not have your papers? That's not guten, yeah? You know, it's like, good gracious.
Wow.
I grew up in L.A. I have very bad experiences. It was so bad that, like another bunch of people I know that grew up in L.A., to this day, we're 65, 70, 75 years old. We still have nightmares about getting jacked up by L.A.P.D. I still, to this day, sometimes have a nightmare about I'm caught in L.A. for some reason, for some mess, and there's some detectives that are going to try to get me and do some wrong to me.
L.A., is that bad? Was that bad? Or
it was that bad.
Wow.
It's
so beautiful out there, though. I guess,
Yeah, but I can remember coming back in '75 for a vacation, and somebody saying, "We're in the hood, man. What's wrong?" Where are the trees? Yeah, man, they cut the trees down so the helicopters can patrol at rooftop level. Helicopters? Yeah, I remember being in law school 5 years before. I come out of my apartment, blink, instant daylight, boom, 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 loudspeaker. That's the helicopter. This is a police vehicle. A ground unit will arrive shortly. Remove your identification and hold it in your right hand.
Wow.
Make no furtive movements or the officers will act accordingly. Now, how many places do the young folk know what furtive movement means?
Right.
We did in L.A. Man, you hear about Earl? Man, oh, man. L.A.P.D. shot him 17 times, man. What happened, man? He didn't carry no piece. I know, man. He was unarmed, but he made a fatal furtive, man. Furtive movement. We used to call it the fatal furtive. What happened, man? The stomp. Oh, man, he made a fatal furtive, man. They shot him 7 times.
Wow.
Well, I, as an officer, was approaching the suspect. He made a furtive movement as though to reach for a revolver. In fearing for my life, I drew my service revolver and fired 6 shots, reloaded and fired 6 more until he was not moving, and I thought the threat had been diminished to the point where I was safe. I checked the suspect, and I acted in error. He did not have a gun, but I was in fear of my life because he made a furtive movement. Nobody ever got prosecuted in L.A. for shooting somebody.
Wow.
I was investigating a criminal case with 2 other guys for this law professor who was doing a pro bono criminal defense. We went to talk to some witnesses. And we're standing on the porch talking to these witnesses, and a guy drove up in a brand new Cutlass, Oldsmobile Cutlass, just drove it off the lot. And he parked, and he came over, and he was bragging about the car. Well, while we were standing there, This drunk drives down the street, sideswipes 4 or 5 cars, including his, and really damages them, and then rams a phone pole and wrecks his car, and he staggers out of the car and collapses into a stupor over the hood of his wrecked car. Well, L.A.P.D got called, took them an hour to get there. 2 squad cars with 2 cops. They didn't want to be bothered. They didn't feel like writing it up because they were at the end of their shift. This sergeant came. The sergeant said, well, you know, your problem, you don't need a new car anyway. You know, black people, you're getting out of hand, buying new cars and getting heirs and outside of yourself. He said something to that effect. The guy said, what the hell, man, I'm a citizen. This fool's drunk. Look at him. He may be dead. Aren't you even going to go look at him? We don't have the time. We've got more important things to do. I said, well, man, I'm complaining. I'm a citizen. He said, oh, okay, I'll tell you what. I'll give you something to complain about. He pulls his service revolver, jams it in the guy's left shoulder, and shoots him. He said, bam. Dude said, man, you shot me, man. He said, now you got something to complain about. He says, guys, let's go. So they leave.
Wow.
And we've got to call 911. They take the guy to the emergency room. Several days later, the law professor is pissed, and he gets involved, pro bono again. So we go down to the precinct station, and we look through their book. It's supposed to have the pictures of everybody that's a cop at that precinct, all shifts. And interestingly enough, on the shift in question, there were 3 missing pictures. See, that's L.A.P.D. I'm sure they've got some fine officers now. As a matter of fact, I had a first cousin, Keith Brown, who was a career cop with L.A.P.D. He's an all right guy. I know a couple other all right guys, but the problem is there were a whole bunch that weren't.
That's crazy.
See this movie Mulholland Drive, and you get the idea about L.A.P.D. There's another one I forget the name of. The guy was intimating. It was a story about Sergeant Friday and the TV thing, and a cop that was advising him who got killed. Big Hollywood scandal, but that was even more on point about how they used to treat black folk in L.A. It was horrible. Like Inglewood, everybody goes to the wood. It's the hood. When I was growing up in L.A., you couldn't drive through Inglewood after dark unless you had somebody's written note that you worked as a domestic for them.
Wow.
I mean, that was taking your life in your hands. I remember in the 60s, I'm a student at UCLA. I'm working for student government. There are 3 of us in the car. We're trying to go pick something up for a professor out in Anaheim, about half a mile from Disneyland. Well, it turned out the place was in a back alley, and we were having a hard time finding it, so a cop turned his lights on. We're in a state car. And he says, may I help you, gentlemen? And we said, yeah, officer, we're trying to find this address. He said, well, sir, I understand your problem. Everybody has a problem with that because it's in an alley. If you go down here, turn here, turn here, turn here. He says, now, it's winter, and it's about 4 o'clock. Let me suggest to you that you finish your business, because if it's dark, it's not going to be sir anymore to any of you. It's going to be, and he said, the N-word. So let me suggest you get out of here before dark. Now, that's a half a mile from Disneyland.
Wow, they cops like that.
Yes, that was the reality. Everybody thinks California's, hey, whoa. L.A. had the worst police in America.
Oh, man.
Cold-blooded and ruthless.
And that was Henry Gates. Henry Gates came up through that. All right.
Oh, yeah. That was before Gates got in there. That was Chief Parker. They got him out of Alabama. He came from Alabama with his twang. And he said, I'll have them down where they belong and us back on top. That was that was his statement. And he had his position for life for good behavior. That was the end of police corruption in L.A. But you know. And I remember in 1973, I was in Jackson, Mississippi, and I promise you, I pulled a recruitment poster for L.A.P.D. down off of a telephone pole and mailed it to some friends in L.A.
Mm.
Now, that's how cold-blooded that was.
Mm.
They were clinical, and they acted just like the Gestapo. Richard Pryor joked about it in one of his albums. L.A.P.D. pulls you over. Said, on the wall. What wall? Find one. I can remember going to a fraternity sorority function. It was a ball. I had on a tux, and my date had on a gown. It was one of the few days in L.A. it was raining. They made us lie on the wet sidewalk for 45 minutes while they were calling us in and going all through the car. Didn't find anything, but everything was out in the rain. Took the back seat out. Left it on the sidewalk. Just being low down.
Oh, it's like, that is insane, man. Jeez. God,
yeah,
man.
but that's routine. I mean, I turn around, and I look around, this guy's got a 38 pointer right in my face. This cop. What are you doing? I said, I'm getting in my car. What's your license number? Fortunately, I remembered. Why are you driving this car? I said, because my old man said I could borrow his car. Because I got an important date. Any problem with that? I mean, it's like, what the hell?
Right.
The one thing, they had a double killing on campus at UCLA. There were two Panthers that were students, John Huggins and Bunchy Carter.
Mm-hmm.
And the US organization run by Ron Karenga, the person that invented Kwanzaa, which I don't celebrate because he invented it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a snitch out there. And he was killing all of the people that were making a difference in the community. And he had 4 guys gun down Bunchy Carter and John Huggins in the cafeteria of Campbell Hall, which was where they had the Minority Studies Center. It was in broad daylight about high noon. Well, aside from what happened there, we had a guy who was the vice chancellor who for 6 months was the acting chancellor of the University of California with 60-some thousand full-time students. The main chancellor was taking a sabbatical for research. So the black guy has all of these chancellors from European universities over in the chancellor's conference room in a formal function. L.A.P.D. kicks in the closed doors with shotguns, takes the black acting chancellor, handcuffs him with his hands behind his back, jabbing him in the back with a 12-gauge shotgun, and they march him from the chancellor's office 1.5 miles across campus in front of all of these white students, handcuffed with 5 cops dragging him along and one of them busting him in the back with a shotgun and handcuff him to a chair at the scene of the murder.
Wow. Didn't hear about that part. Wow.
I witnessed
what
that
happened?
with my own 2 eyes. They handcuffed me, put me in there too.
They handcuffed you too?
Yeah. They kept us handcuffed to a chair.
Did they know who they were handcuffing? Did they know that the guy was an acting chancellor at all?
Yeah, they busted in the meeting.
Oh, so they knew who he was, and they did it anyway.
The chancellor's conference room. They asked for him. We checked later. And they kicked the door in. And they had 7 or 8 chancellors from European universities in there, all dignified. You know, and they were serving champagne and lunch and all of the rest of this stuff.
Oh, man.
And they kicked in the door and they handcuffed him and shoved him like a dog in front of all these students 1.5 miles across campus.
Oh, man. So what was that? What happened afterward? I mean, how did the school respond? I mean, what did the chancellor say about it or do?
Well, he was the chancellor. The other guy didn't come back for 4 months.
So I mean, like, what was the school? I mean, what was the response? How did they? Nothing was done.
Well, that was the anti-war period and all that. The students didn't like it, but L.A.P.D would send the goon squad out there and just try to tramp through campus and mess with everybody.
Oh man, that's crazy.
I mean, it was awful. I mean, they'd come through there and they'd have agitators. Somebody throw something. Why don't you, man? What's the matter, man? What's wrong with you, man? Nobody's going to throw it. It is a peaceful demonstration, man. Well, this accident, you're L.A.P.D, man. I've seen you before.
Wow.